Coming up on TekThing, Google Home versus Amazon Echo. Find all the mail you can unsubscribe from, gaming keyboards, headsets, and some awesome GPU picks. Ladies and gentlemen, who's up for a 5K? All that and more coming up on TekThing. If you get something useful out of this episode of TekThing, please consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/TekThing. We're brought to you by viewers just like you. Thank you so much.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patty Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we have something useful in every single show.
And today we're going to help you waste lots of time gaming.
I like that. We're doing a whole game-a-thon in this episode, and it's super exciting. But first, we have something I know you guys are super excited to hear about.
An air freshener.
It's an air freshener! But literally, like, I took it out of the box and I was like, it smells a little funny. Smell it. It smells kind of like
Plastic.
That's the Google Home. It costs $129 over at google.com/home. And it also comes with free 6 months of YouTube Red if you're interested in getting YouTube Red. So they have a deal right now going on. And it definitely actually does look like an air freshener.
This is essentially Google's shot across the bow of Amazon. We're a little behind on the whole smart homes initiative because of the
we should do that.
Thermometer kerfuffle.
So definitely looks like an air freshener. On the back there is a mute button in case you want to mute the microphone on it. It also has a factory reset button, which is great, so you can do that straight from the hardware instead of going through software. The top is completely touch sensitive, so you can touch anywhere at the top and choose buttons like there's a pause and play button. There's also volume controls as well on there. And it also allows you to do multi-room use. So if you end up buying several of these, you can play the same music and have it cast to several different rooms at the same time, which is pretty cool. I like that they included that.
I just want to say, this is not a substitute for a Sonos or any kind of dedicated audio player.
No, it is not.
If you turn the volume up on this, you will not have party mode. You will have, gee whiz, that sounds awful.
We'll talk about the audio of the speaker a little bit more in a moment. The Google Home app makes it really, really easy to set this thing up. And mysteriously, it was already downloaded on my phone when I received the Home.
Dun.
Maybe Home does that when you purchase the Google Home. I'm not sure.
Or maybe you were sleep installing apps.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, right. You order it from the Google Play Store, which is tied into your Google.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And it is required for setup, so it would make sense if they included that on your phone. Pro tip though, everything will be tied to your account when you set this up. So anybody else that is in your house talking to the Home will be able to access your calendar just by asking it. So if you have very personal details on your calendar or something like that, I would suggest creating a separate account just for the Home. Otherwise, everybody can access it. There's no Bluetooth in this, so you can't connect it to a Bluetooth speaker. It is just wireless, just Wi-Fi, so you connect it to your home Wi-Fi. For me, I used the 5G account at my house.
Okay.
And I believe we set it up with the 5G one here too, so it can use 5G, yay. It does have Google Assistant for voice recognition, so it's very similar to the Pixel, and it has similar capabilities as the Google Assistant on the Pixel. You can ask Home for things like the weather, you can ask it to add stuff to your shopping list, you can play music, pretty much all the same things that you can also do with the Echo from Amazon. It can also check my Google Calendar, as I mentioned, which is super useful.
Okay, Google, what time is my next meeting? Oh, I spoke too fast.
Your next calendar entry is on the 23rd of November 2016 at 7:35 a.m. The title is Flight to Atlanta.
You're going to Atlanta?
Well, it's a layover. But yeah, I'm going home for Thanksgiving, so that's not super personal. I don't care if everybody knows that. It cannot text people, it cannot call people, and it did have trouble getting flight information on the day that I received it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. When I tried it setting it up here in the studio, I asked it the same question, and now it knows my flight itinerary. So maybe it took a little while to update with my personal details, or maybe it just got updated after having it for a week. So hooray for ongoing updates. I like that.
And this is something like, when you first got Amazon's Echo, Shannon was like, I can do 3 things.
Yes.
And now she can do like 123 things.
Exactly.
But they seem to be rolling, we hope, ideally.
We hope.
In a perfect world, they will continue to update this with new and exciting features.
So speaking of features, I tried using this with the Chromecast too, because one of the cool things you can do if you go over to their compatible partners is you can play video to your home Chromecast. It was actually kind of irritating though. I tried asking Home to play Hack 5 on Chromecast, and then I tried TekThing on Chromecast, both of which are available on YouTube, and then cat videos on Chromecast. So it did not get Hack 5 or TekThing right. Instead, it played a Minecraft video and one about cell phones. I guess the tech cell phone thing? I don't know, but neither of those were correct. It did understand cat videos though, I assume because that's so generic, it's rather easy to figure it out. The speaker on this, like he mentioned, oh, you just calm down there. The speaker, it gets really loud.
Right.
The audio is heavy on the bass side, but on those louder points, it kind of feels like nails on a chalkboard or something like that.
If you're listening to this at sort of moderate background volumes,
then it's fine.
Not bad.
Yeah,
if
it's
you
fine.
Try to turn it up for party mode, it's blown out, it's screechy, it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
Probably even more so than the Echo. And the Echo speakers, not anything to write
Yeah,
home about
both of them are kind of subpar. I would say they are on par with each other, but this is nowhere near, like, for example, Sonos Play 1. But if you are interested in playing some music on this, for example, you can search for stuff that is on YouTube. So I could say, okay, Google, play dual core All the Things.
All right, All the Things by Dual Core. Here it is on YouTube.
Not every geek with a Commodore 64.
And then it'll start playing the music straight from a YouTube playlist, and it'll keep on playing music after that, probably from the same artist, as long as it's in some kind of playlist from YouTube. So thank you, Dual Core, for letting us play a little bit of your music. Boomy, very boomy. So keep that in mind if you want to use this for party music. As for API usage, currently the Echo completely has it beat. The Echo can read Twitter, it can do stuff like, the same as this. It can use timers, weather, shopping lists, music. You can connect it with all sorts of different partners, not just, Hue light bulbs and etc. For example,
there's Spotify.
There is Spotify on this one. So this one has 5 to choose from for audio. Smart home, it's missing quite a few on here. For example, Logitech Harmony just paired up with the Amazon Echo. So you can now use your Logitech Harmony remote, connect it to the Echo, and just tell the Echo to turn on your TV, and that will work. Well, this one does not include things like that. But hey, again, it is growing. At the moment, it is quite minimal, and I could say the same thing for the Echo when that one first came out. So I would like to see this one include more, and I think it will in the future.
You don't need Prime for this.
You don't need Prime for that. Exactly. So if you already have an Echo, you don't necessarily need the Home, because they do pretty much the same things with a few differences in there, like the calendar, for example. The Echo, for me, doesn't connect to my calendar at the moment, but it is a Google Calendar, so this one easily connects. If you have neither one, you would be quite happy with the Home, especially if you use a bunch of Google stuff already. I would say eventually, though, they do need to add more features and more services before I would be completely satisfied with saying, like, hey, go buy this thing. But right now, for $129, I think they should include more, because it's an expensive speaker, and you can get the same thing out of your phone at the moment. So it's kind of a trade-off.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see as the sort of, I was in a Best Buy last night.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, there's a giant smart thing section.
Wow.
It's not that giant, because certainly looking at it, it's like, okay, a quarter of it was like thermometers.
Yeah.
And a quarter of it was like smart home.
Of course.
So, there was, or I should say, smart things.
Yeah.
I will be really curious to see what this has and like what maybe pops up around CES next year.
Yeah, me too.
Definitely an early adopter product.
Absolutely. So yeah, take our advice if you would like to. If you want to go ahead and buy it, you go right on ahead. I think you'll be happy.
I think you'll be spending a lot of time with if this, then that.
Yes. Yes, you will.
Black Friday is approaching, so we thought it was a good time to get an update on the latest in GPU awesomeness, from budget to I have multiple 4K monitors and all the money to spend. Joining us is our favorite GPU maven, PCper's Ryan Shrout. How's it going, man?
It's going all right. You said Black Friday, and it scared me a little bit that we're getting close to all of those things. And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh yeah, that means Christmas is right behind it. And So yes, purchasing and shopping and decisions are all very busy right now.
I've just managed to ruin yet another person's day today. Yes! Oh my goodness. I just want to check, while I'm ruining days, no new GPUs coming as far as we know between now and the end of the year.
I would say almost assuredly not. Yes.
Good. Because it has been an insane year, right? We had, we finally got over the sort of like everybody buying high-end GPUs for Bitcoins, and then we sort of had a dearth of new cards. Then we had a flood of new cards from GTX, from Nvidia GTX cards. Right. And then those weren't available and were selling for incredibly inflated prices. But now, as of October, pretty much all the cards seem to be available at the best prices we've seen them all year.
Yep. Yeah, things are, they're selling at the MSRPs they're supposed to be selling at. There's competition in the, let's say, mid-range and down that wasn't there before. So that's good news for consumers.
Well, if we're thinking good, better, best, and we start, I don't think either one of us want anybody to spend less than $100 on a GPU right now, and we don't want anybody to buy the last generation technology. For example, 950 was a great card until the 1050 came out. If you're looking at sort of an Nvidia GTX for 1050, an AMD Radeon RX 460, and then there's 2 GB versions of that and 4 GB versions for about a $10 difference, and then an Nvidia GTX 1050 Ti. Do any of those really stand out as the card to have between $100 and $150?
It may sound like a cop-out, but obviously the more expensive one, the better, right? So there's some things you got to consider, right? Graphics memory, when you get down into this space, is going to be you can find some 2 GB frame buffer cards, or you can find some 4 GB cards. And the difference in that is going to be pretty substantial, even if you're looking at 1080p gaming, if you plan on increasing your image quality settings. And we were talking before we started recording about how there is such compression in the market there in that space, and that you'll find some 2 GB cards are priced higher than some 4 GB cards from the same vendors or from cross vendors or from the same GPU company. And so it can get very confusing. So it's important for people to pay attention, like what card you're buying, look at the memory on it. If you look at 1080s and 1070s, you don't have to worry about that. They all have 8 gigs and you kind of move on. But when you're in the 1060, 1050 space with the 460 from AMD in there as well, just pay attention to that when you're looking. If the 1050, the GTX 1050 is like $109 and the GTX 1050 Ti is $139 or so. There's going to be variance both ways. Then the RX 460 2 GB version is like $109, and the 4 GB version is like $10, only $10 more, right? Of those 4 options, the GTX 1050 Ti gives you the best performance in most games, but I would actually favor the 460 over the base 1050 probably, right? Okay. So if you can afford $30 more, the 1050 Ti is the way to go. You're going to get your best total overall performance there, and you're still under that $150 mark.
Now, when you pick sort of the 1050 Ti at the top, the Radeon RX 460, I'm going to assume that's the 4 GB version you want?
Yeah. So that's the 4 gig versions you can find starting at $119 or so. So again, it seems like, because when we're talking about things like the GTX 1080 that are over $600, the idea of $10 making a difference in your purchasing decision seems a little out of line. But when these levels where people are on tighter budgets, that 10, 20, $30 can make a difference. And
it's like 5 to 10% of the cost of the car. That's a big chunk of change at a $100 GPU. So going to better in that sort of $200 range, it seems like there's AMD's Radeon RX 470 or Nvidia's GTX 1060 seem to be sitting, like you mentioned before, some are down around $190, some are up around $230, but generally around $200. There's the RX 470 and the GTX 1060.
Yeah, the GTX 1060 has a 6 and a 3 gig variant. It was interesting. They launched with a 6 gig. They didn't have a 3 gig when it first launched. There's a $50 price difference there, $199 or $250. The 3 gig is going to be pretty good for most things. 1080p gaming, the 6 gigs obviously going to be a little bit better. The RX 470 is an interesting place because the RX 470 is going to cost you about $189 up to $200, $210 depending on which model you're looking at. And that creeps right into the RX 480 4 gig territory. The RX 480 4 gig is like $199. So the RX 470, we said this when it launched, and it continues to be the case. We kind of thought they would maybe drop the price a little bit. If the RX 470 were to drop to like 149 or 159, it would make a lot more sense in the performance stack. As it is now, I would kind of bypass the 470 and jump up to that RX 480 if you want to go on the AMD side. And on the Nvidia side, the GTX 1060 6 gig card is going to be the better performer in all these, and especially if the 1060 gives you maybe the capability to start to look at higher than 1080p resolutions, maybe. But either of those options really will do, I think, wonders for anybody who is still on a 1080p gaming monitor.
And definitely want, in terms of the 1060, the 6 gigabyte version and not the 3 gigabyte version. Yeah,
I think so. I think the $50 price delta is a lot. You're talking about 20% of the price of the card at that point. But I think for long term, that makes more sense. The 1060 also being good for, capable of VR gaming, that type of stuff. The extra frame buffer, the extra memory on that card makes more sense.
Let's talk about the card you called the best balance of sort of high-end and affordability. NVIDIA's GTX 1070 with 8 gigabytes of memory. That's selling for $410. Is that all the card you can possibly use if you're going to stick to a 1080p monitor?
Definitely. If you have a 1080p display, the GTX 1070 might even weigh on the side of overkill for that, but it does give you more flexibility as newer games are coming out. You've got Civ 6, you've got Battlefield 1, you've got a bunch of titles that are kind of coming out and creeping into that space, and they are doing better with increasing image quality and giving you more options that way. So a 1070 on a 1080p screen makes sense for the most part, and it does absolutely give you that headroom to increase to either higher refresh rate displays. You want to get 120 hertz or 144 hertz 1080p monitor, you could do that and be able to have a reasonable assumption that you'll be able to kind of saturate that, or you can get into the 2560 by 1440 battlegrounds if you want with that as well. And it's still, it's like $400 to $425. It's right in that range. That is still, it's expensive for a PC component, but it's not, the next one up, the 1080, right? And from AMD's standpoint, they don't really have a competing card once you get above their RX 480. That's something that will be in the first quarter of next year. So, the AMD Fury cards are out there, but they're not really on anybody's recommended list at this point.
When we're looking at a sort of a 1060 versus a 1070, which one of those would be your entry-level card for a VR rig?
The 1060 can absolutely do VR, and it would be the entry point, I believe. So it was a GTX 970 was what Oculus and Rift kind of launched with as the minimum. Right. The 1060 is a little bit faster than the 970, so you would have no issues there. We're seeing more games come out on VR. I was just playing Serious Sam VR today, and it's introducing a lot of additional image quality settings and options that are really pushing some of these entry-level cards. So if you're, if you want to do VR and you say, well, I don't want just the entry-level experience with it, I want a little bit better, the 1070 is definitely going to be a pretty significant jump forward.
Could you start with a 1060 and add a second 1060, or does VR rigs really not taking advantage of SLI?
That is just beginning, and I wouldn't, if you do that with the intent of buying a second 1060 in like 6 months, maybe that makes sense. But anytime you get into multi-GPU, you always have to take into account that some games just may never support multi-GPU. And that sucks, because that's half of your investment that's really not being utilized in any given game. I always tell people, if you're planning to do SLI or Crossfire or multi-GPU configuration, buy the higher end card and kind of save yourself the trouble in the long run, if it's possible at all.
So stepping up to $600 to $700, we're looking at the GTX 1080 as kind of the king of the hill right now in terms of price and performance. If you're looking at 4K gaming, or if you're looking at, wanting all the headroom for VR. I mean, does anybody really need a GTX 1080?
Well, debatable, obviously. I would say, if you're gaming in 4K, the GTX 1080 is kind of where you have to start. There is a higher end card, the Titan X, that's based on Pascal, but that's, crazy money. We're talking almost, $400 or $500 more than that GTX 1080. But the 1080 is kind of the peak consumer option. I would say, high resolution gaming, even 25 by 14, if you're one of the guys that's interested in the widescreen monitors, 3440 by 1440, there's a use for GTX 1080, right? So if you're going to invest in expensive kind of high-end components in other areas, whether it be a processor or a display, it makes sense that you follow along with the same classification of cards in that way. Now, if you're on a 1080p monitor or you're kind of just getting started, a 1080 is going to be overkill for you, but it gives you the most flexibility across the board.
If I buy a 1080 right now, let's say I'm 1080p gaming, I buy a GTX 1080 right now because I want to be future-proof. Am I going to turn around and see 1080 performance for $300-400 in 6 months?
6 months? Probably. I think that makes sense, right? I think from both NVIDIA and AMD standpoint, you may be creeping into that next refresh at that standpoint. That's always the worry when you're buying the high-end stuff. Always assume that there's something else around the corner. I can tell the future to a certain degree. You won't regret your decision this year or probably in the beginning parts. But AMD will have answers in Q1 next year. That's what they tell us at least. So we'll just have to see how those pan out. But the 1080, I will say this, if you buy a 1080, if you have the budget for that, you have the money in your wallet to shell out for it, there will never be an instance where you're disappointed playing a PC game, that's for sure.
All the performance. And remember, kids, always choose more memory. Anything you can tease coming up before Black Friday on PCper.com, Ryan?
If you are interested in gaming laptops, we have a roundup of 9 different MSI gaming laptops from $1,400 to $3,500. I think was the peak one we looked at this time. So a lot of good stuff there. And then we'll have some new. If you're interested in VR specific performance, we'll have some news for you there that will be, I think, pretty interesting about the selections.
PCper.com is the place to go, ladies and gentlemen, to find out about those gaming laptops and the VR tees. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Mr. Ryan Shrout for making the time for us. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Got a tech question? Want to see us review a product here on TekThing? Got a tip or an idea you want to share with the whole crew? Do us a favor. Fire them out to ask@tekthing.com, please. Or you can tweet @TekThing, @Snubs, or @Patrick Norton. And hey, if you want to personally make the show possible, please contribute to the show at patreon.com/TekThing. Just $1 an episode will make a huge difference, and you'll get access to our patron-only build videos and quite a bit more. Thank you, everyone who donates for your patronage. You make the show possible. And if you can't donate, we totally understand. Keep sending in those emails. And hey, if you could spare a moment or two to give our video the thumbs up on YouTube, like our Facebook page, so much news there, or review TekThing on iTunes, your favorite podcatcher, we'd appreciate it. It all helps. Thank you so much for supporting TekThing and Shannon and I, no matter how you do it. 3 things impact your life every time you get hands-on with your computer. Well, eyes on, I guess. Well, there's a monitor.
There is a monitor.
There's the keyboard, which we have a giant pile of gaming keyboards here. And of course, there's the mouse.
HID devices.
Well, yeah.
Human interface devices, basically.
We are humans and we interface with our computers. You have a pile of the latest in gaming keyboards.
I literally have a pile of gaming keyboards. It's true. You guys might remember the one that we reviewed a couple weeks back. It was the in our Tech Bargains episode. It's the Firerose MK3 first player mechanical keyboard. That one's the cheapest of the bunch. $45.
Well, in part, it's got like no brand, like mock cherry blue keyboards, which would be great. Except blue cherries are like, they're tactile and clicky.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is mechanicalkeyboards.com. It's a wonderful chart that shows you sort of all the different switches that are out there, from cherries and KBT, Greetech, Matthias, all sorts of good stuff. We've seen custom keys, of course, on Corsair's high-end keyboards. But one of the things I love about this keyboard, it's like $45, and it's mechanical, but it's a weird keyboard because it has like 20 or 25 grams of pressure, which is ridiculously light for a mechanical keyboard.
Yeah, it's very light. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah, 4 millimeters of travel on that one, and it's very clicky. It's similar to like a cherry blue.
Right.
And there's no wrist rest though, so if you pay $45 for something, you're not going to get a wrist rest.
I don't use wrist rests.
You don't? I do. I love wrist rests because I'm lazy. No programming keys, but you can change the brightness on that. However, it's just like a rainbow pattern, and that's all you get. So keep that in mind. You just kind of have to deal with the rainbow. It does feel kind of plastic.
Keyboards are like, I like clicky keyboards.
Yeah.
You hate clicky keyboards.
I do. So personally, for me, I like quieter keyboards, and I think the reason why is because I podcast, and it's so much easier for me to search up really quick bits if I have a quiet keyboard while I'm podcasting, so nobody can hear it over my mic. And it doesn't really affect me with gaming. I actually prefer the quietness, so it doesn't really distract me or anything like that. But other people love clicky, like Darren and Sebastian, both who work in our office. They love clicky keyboards. So I have one of each for you guys today. I have the HyperX Alloy FPS by Kingston. It's $100. It's a $100 mechanical Cherry MX Blue keyboard. And the nice thing about this one is it's solid steel, so it feels very, very durable on the inside. Yeah, it's nice. It's very, very well built for $100. And it does come with a bag for all of your LAN parties. I was like, that's a little weird. And the cable, it's a braided cable that comes with it. It is a mini USB, and it's separated, so you have to plug it in before you can use it. And then you can also charge your phone if you want to. It just has one little additional USB cable on there. The keys are all red. They're all backlit red. You can't change the color as something. There's no RGB. There's also no rest wrist included with this one, so keep that in mind as well. I really like the clickiness of this one. Like if I loved clicky, I'd be like, oh, this is nice. I mean, just listen to that. That's some serious click.
It's a standard cherry blue.
Yeah, standard cherry blue. Currently, I'm using the Corsair K70 keyboard, which has like 50 million keystrokes guaranteed, and this one's pretty similar on there, 50 million keystrokes guaranteed. Wow. But yeah, if you like that clicky, I think you would like it. Of course, there is anti-ghosting on here, so you don't have to worry about ghosting. There is no software required. There's color brightness and presets with the FN and arrow keys. So if you want to change the brightness or if you want to program it to do like a pretty fade of red all the way across the keyboard, you can do that with this one. The actuation on this is 2.2 millimeters, and I believe since it's blue, it's about 50 grams of force on that one. And I could definitely tell a difference between that one and the reds that I have at home. It is a very great keyboard overall for less than $100. It is missing some obvious features like RGB, but it's a good quality for under $100.
Well, part of what's funny about like, as soon as you go to sort of programmable RGB LED keyboards, you go to like the $150, $170 range.
It's true.
Part of Kingston's sort of HyperX thing on this is it's very small, so there's no extra. If you want to do volume control and stuff like that, it's all about function and hitting the volume keys on that one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that's a great one if you want to take it to like LAN parties and stuff like that.
We have a small desk.
At the top of the pricing list this week is the Logitech G810 Orion Spectrum. It's $160 or $159.99. It is a full RGB mechanical keyboard with over 16 million different color presets that you can check out.
The whole keyboard or
the
like
whole
individual
keyboard.
Keys?
So you can do individual keys, like I could make that one red and this one's purple or whatever you want. So it is programmable.
That's the extra $60.
Yeah, exactly. That's the extra $60. And it is programmable because it comes with software, which you download from the Logitech website. So this one uses these special ones called Roamer G mechanical switches. They are rated at 70 million keystrokes, and they're 25% faster than a standard switch with similar testing. So these I would rate around the same as Reds. So 45 gram actuation or pressure that is required to take them down, something around that nature. It is a braided USB cable, which is great, so you're not going to have to worry about this wearing out anytime soon. You can turn the different colors on or off on here, but you do have to install the gaming software to customize the key colors or sync them with other Logitech G products that you might have. So if you have a mouse that has the Logitech G RGBs controllers in it, you can also set this one to do the same rainbow effect as your mouse, which seems distracting to me, but you know, if you want to do it, you can do it. You can control your audio from your keyboard. You have a volume up and down, and you have the play and pause and forward and back.
You can do with either one of these, but this one actually, I actually really like the big scroll wheels.
I do too. I use it all the time, especially at home. It's so useful. So I like the audio scrolly wheel. There is no wrist rest with this one either. So none of these come with wrist rest. What the heck, people? I like my wrist rest. Is that a new thing in marketing? Like nobody's just including wrist rests anymore? I don't like this.
You shouldn't have your wrists in front of the keyboard. It's also, we should point out the whole speed thing on this, the 25% faster is because their actuation distance is 1.5 millimeters instead of say like on the HyperX where it's 2.2 millimeters.
Yeah, so it's a lot closer of a distance. They also have this thing called 26 key rollover, which I could find would be very useful for things like MMOs, where you have to click several different keys at once, and 26 key rollover means that you'll be able to hit 26 keys in a very, very fast pace, and it will understand exactly what you wanted to get in there, what kind of keystrokes you wanted for it to understand. It feels very similar to my Corsair K70 keyboard as far as pressure goes. It's quiet just like that one as well. It feels very much like a Cherry MX Red keyboard, so if you like Cherry MX Red, you would probably like the Roamer G keys that come on this Logitech keyboard. And Roamer G is basically like Logitech's version of Cherry MX Red. So I think that if you like Reds, then you would probably like this one. But is it worth $160? I think that's the big question here is, do you want to spend that much money for RGB?
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, literally, that's the big jump from like $100 to $160, $170, whether you're talking about Corsair or Logitech or some of the other brands. It's also really funny, it's like, you know, they have like 26 key or anti-ghosting. It's the same thing. It's basically like you want to be able to press lots of keys simultaneously. IBM Model M, 25 years old, still my favorite gaming keyboard. And that's also why I like clicky keyboards so much. I actually have like a cheap membrane keyboard that when I'm too loud for recording, I'll pull out the cheap membrane keyboard. Like I actually often have two keyboards plugged into one of my computers, and I do all my serious typing on a chair.
That's how you can hack harder. You have to have two different keyboards and type on both of them at the same time.
Word.
Not true. Let us know what you think, what your favorite gaming keyboards are. You can email us, ask@tekthing.com, or you can tweet us @tekthing.
Or even if you want us to talk about keyboards anymore.
That too.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick.
Yep.
Thank you for talking to Ryan Shrout about GPUs, because Keith wants one for Christmas. So Keith is my hubs. Snubs hubs.
Snubs hubs.
Yes, he wants one for Christmas. So I was just like listening very closely while I was editing that, going, I better make sure I listen closely and know which ones to get Keith for Christmas.
So many good GPUs.
I know, it's awesome. There's so many great choices. But moving on from those, let's talk about headsets, gaming headsets specifically.
I've been doing more PC gaming lately, almost exclusively on headphones, because I do it after the children are asleep, and usually after my spouse is asleep.
Makes sense.
And doing it in the living room with the full surround sound is a guaranteed way of waking up a 4-year-old screaming at 3 in the morning.
We don't want that.
It's awkward. It's really awkward. And then he wants to watch like Oswald or something.
Aww.
You know, and then
so cute.
Yeah. So in any case, I generally use headphones when I'm gaming because I don't want to drive everybody nuts. So when Logitech sent over the G231 Prodigy gaming headset, and Sennheiser said, "You want to check out our new top-of-the-line 7.1 surround sound gaming headset, the PC373D?" I said, "Sure. Let us talk about what a gaming headset is," right?
Yeah.
Headphones, mic, they're usually big, they're bulky. The idea is they're going to be comfy. They want to have big, soft cushions over your ears.
Right, because you're going to be playing for hours.
Hours.
Yeah.
Hours. Surprise, or something that delighted me, because I listened to 3 or 4 different gaming headsets as part of this. I'm only really going to talk about 2. They all sounded much better than they have in the past.
Really?
Well,
That's surprising.
I have some friends that are serious audio geeks. Like they own $1,000 headphones, and they put on like a gaming headset. And they're like, everything's wrong. And the mids. It's funny. Some gaming headsets, they're like, we're going to make the explosion super boomy, and that can be really irritating. And some are kind of like, we're going to make the mids really forward, so you hear sort of the voices in the action. But overall, I was really pleasantly surprised with how good all of the different ones I listened to.
Cool. Okay.
Which I didn't expect. Let's talk about this. And the reason I'm not holding these up is because I left the bag with all the headsets in it at home this morning because vote.
Because vote.
PC373D, a high-end open acoustic gaming headset with 7.1 Dolby Surround sound. Open means essentially that the backs are open. That is used on headsets or headphones to give them a larger sound stage or a bigger feel. Okay. These are very music friendly. And they will also leak a bit when you turn them up about halfway. So right over here, these are essentially USB. There is no 3.5 millimeter jack, and they're pretty much PC only. Some people have had luck using them with PlayStation 4s. Some people found the PlayStation 4 couldn't sort of adjust the volume up high enough. But generally speaking, think of these as being a PC gaming headset. Only. That dongle we looked at, there's a button that turns Dolby Headphone on and off. There's volume on the side of the headphone that allows you to adjust the volume. And I gotta say, having the volume on the side of the ear cup is much, much nicer than having to be like, where did I leave the dongle?
Yes.
Where's the dongle? Dongle.
Is the mic detachable?
The mic is not detachable.
Okay.
Or at least I didn't try to rip it off.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
You'll notice if it's detachable.
Yeah, well, I used to work with someone that would sort of be like, this should come off, and they would cone in. Not intentionally, but just because they were much burlier than they looked.
That's funny.
But so again, these are doing USB audio. They're basically turning the digital music or the digital soundtrack into the audio you hear in the dongle. You want to run, they have like the PC373 surround dongle software, which basically installs the Sennheiser audio program. It's got a whole bunch of settings in there for EQ settings, music, game, and esports. Esports is designed to make you sort of hear the people padding around in Counter-Strike, so it tends to boost the treble a little bit more than I like. Music and game mostly seem to sort of boost bass in the mid-range.
Okay.
Side tone settings allow you to hear your microphone through your headphones. There's a noise reduction option for the mic. A lot of this for me comes down to is, do you believe Dolby Headphone is better than stereo for gaming?
Yeah.
Given a choice, I will be perfectly honest with you. I would prefer to be, surrounded by speakers, so that it's left, center, right, surround, rear. That way I am enveloped in audio. And hey, let's throw some Atmos in there because Atmos is starting to show up for games.
Because as much as you try, there's a lot of headphone makers that'll do the 7.1 in headphones, and it's not the same.
It's not the same. A lot of folks love Dolby Surround in headphones, but it's not the same as having speakers behind you or speakers up in front of you.
There's left and right, definitely, but it's a very big difference.
It's interesting, right? Because, one of the things that's coming out is sort of the OSIC VR headphones that I I paid for the Kickstarter for, right? They're doing things that are allowing you to create head-related transfer functions that'll be much more realistic. And that's the thing. You can, with stereo speakers, do a pretty good job of making things look way over there or way over there or in the middle. It's much harder to make it sound like things are behind you.
Yeah.
I think Dolby Headphone makes the playing field seem more surrounded. I think it does a pretty good job of psychoacoustics of making things being like around you. I still prefer it in the living room. And that is also, I've discovered from talking to some friends of mine who are much heavier gamers than I am, pound no children, that some people love it and some people despise it, and it's a very, very personal decision.
Yeah.
There's a big microphone on the PC373D. Does a good job rejecting background noise. A little sibilant, but sounds really, really good. If you push the boom up, it goes off, which is really, really nice.
Oh, cool.
And again, it's USB, really PC only. No 3.5 millimeter cable, so you're not going to plug it into your Xbox controller. You're not going to use it on your phone.
Right.
And again, some folks have had luck using it with the PlayStation 4. Really, really good build quality, given that it's pretty much all plastic. Very, very comfortable. Music sounded fantastic, gaming sounded fantastic. If you like Dolby headphones, these are about as good as it gets, but they are open, so they're going to leak a little noise and they're going to let a little noise in. So there are options from Sennheiser that are sealed. If you don't need a mic, I would just get like a set of Sennheiser Momentums, and there are less expensive wireless 7.1 options out there from Razer and Corsair. If you're games only, I don't think they're quite as awesome for music.
Yeah. Agreed.
Stepping the price down, because those are $250.
Okay.
Those are not cheap. Stepping the price down a lot. Logitech's G231 Prodigy gaming headset, which looks exactly how you expect a Logitech headset to look, right? Well, they have a very kind of distinctive style across the majority of their lineup. The big stick mic that folds up on there. They look like a Logitech headset. Essentially, it's a G230 with improvements to audio and the microphone quality, I think. Unlike the G230, these come with an actual headset plug for your phone and an adapter to split that headset plug into a microphone and headphone jacks.
Okay.
I was shocked at how good these sound. They sell for about $65, $70. Audio playback was excellent. The build quality is a little plasticky. These do not feel if you compare them to like Sony MDR7506s, but you're like, I'm going to pound nails with these, and there's lots of steel. These are very plasticky, but they are super comfortable and super light. The pads are very, very nice. Not the best at blocking out background noise, but they will work with anything you can plug them into. Phones, Xbox, PlayStation 4, I think cool. Xbox One with the adapter. Again, a really, really satisfying experience listening to them on music. Excellent gaming. They are stereo, not Dolby 7.1. They cost about $70.
Not bad.
If you have a pair of headphones you like already, you might want to consider adding a mic to them rather than going all out for gaming headsets.
Which mic would you recommend?
I don't know if I'd give it a strong recommendation, but this is Zalman ZM-Mic1 high sensitivity microphone. It essentially clips onto your headphone cable and then plugs into the microphone jack on your computer. It's cheap. It sells for $7.77 on Amazon, and it's pretty omnidirectional. The mic will pick up your keyboard noise. Not the best microphone experience, like if you're like, I really want to do a podcast.
Yes.
Shannon talks about podcasts a lot. This will certainly capture your voice, but it will also capture all of the noise around you. And there's no mute button, so it will capture all of the sounds around you, even when you go to the potty.
How much is it?
$7.77.
Oh, okay.
So it's super cheap. Stepping up, there's some options kind of like this out there. This one's specific for V-MODA's headphones.
That looks a little better.
Well, V-MODA's, they have detachable headphone cables, and this one actually plugs into the headphone jack. Pretty good audio quality. They cost $30. This might be an interesting thing to mod your headphone to use, because this is a standard jack right there. And that's the V-MODA BoomPro microphone, and that sells for about $30.
Cool.
So I thought I'm gonna play a whole bunch more games this week, and I'm gonna try to really nail how I feel about Dolby Headphone.
Okay.
I'm gonna try, because I feel like maybe I'm just not giving it enough of a chance.
No, I have 7.1s at home. I believe they're from Corsair. They're Corsair Vengeance, and I understand where you're coming from. Because you sit in a room that is set up with like hardcore 7.1 theater mode, and it sounds so much more amazing, so much more immersive. But you put on the headphones, and I don't know, there's the left and right, it's obvious, there's the front and center, obvious, but the back is hard to get. Yeah.
I want to hear them sneaking up behind me right before they cap me. I get killed so hard in Counter-Strike.
Patrick had a question on Twitter, and I believe you got an answer for that.
Well, it wasn't even a question. All I posted was, unsubscribing from email you don't want is deeply satisfying. So easy to find thanks to @Gmail's promotions tab.
Yeah.
And @Matt Miller, aka @ManyThingsDeck, responded, quote, I made a label that looks for the word unsubscribe in every email and labels it as unsubscribable. And all I could think was,
so smart.
This is great! Because if you search unsubscribe in a Gmail account, you get a lot of stuff, including some stuff I think a friend of mine subscribed me to that I did not want, because he was trying to get me in trouble with something. To give you an idea of how old this account is, it predates my marriage, and he was trying to get me in trouble with an ex-girlfriend because he was a freak. I got some complicated
drama.
But I was looking at it because this is kind of like my junk account.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But it's not that hard to actually create a label. There's only one thing that's going to show up in it right now, because I just put it on right before this. Categories. You know those moments when you're like, I can click on a label, but I can't?
Unsubscribable.
There it is.
Yep.
There's only one showing up right now, because I just put it on right before we did the show. But now everything with unsubscribe in the email is going to show up under that label.
That's awesome.
And you can decide whether it lives or dies.
And you can back label things like old emails that are in your inbox. You just have to go through a few settings to get there.
It wasn't worth that for me.
Yeah, it's a little complicated to do, but you would search for unsubscribe and then click a little teeny tiny check mark that says include this on your 1,000 other things in your inbox, and then you click yes, and then it does the thing. It's amazing. So what else did we get from Twitter, sir?
Okay, something we talked about sort of accounts being hacked last week, and password managers and security and what to do if you got hacked. And Alfred Michael tweeted out, episode 96, Pat spoke about maybe being hacked. Do not use LastPass for your bank. Steve Gibson does.
Well, I don't.
Steve's awesome. I hate talking about this in a public forum. My banking information is in LastPass because I have to share it with another person.
Okay, that makes sense.
Marriage.
Yeah.
That said, there are things you don't put banking passwords in
Right.
any password manager.
I have a rule with any password manager in general is I don't put banks, social networks, and email passwords in there. I two-factor authentication all of them, and I use not just simple passwords, I use different phrases for each one, which is easy because I'll just memorize like a lyric or whatever it might be, and then use those different phrases. And I have some kind of memorization that tells me which phrase it works on which account, so I don't forget those passwords. That's how I do it. Of course, some people might do it differently, but I don't trust any written thing with my banking, email, or social networks.
Yeah, my Meta email account, I do not put that in Password Manager because that is the account that allows me to recover all of the accounts and manage all the accounts.
Including the password manager.
Yeah, so we may be more paranoid than most people are because we are public figures, because we may piss somebody off, and there's more of us to piss off.
Oh yeah, I constantly have like password change reminders from Instagram and stuff, and I'm just like, somebody's trying again. But that's why I don't put those in any kind of written authentication feature like a password manager.
If you want to see how bad somebody's day can get because they got hacked, Matt Honen's Epic Hacking. That's when I pretty much 2FA'd everything. There's a great article up on Wired. He got somebody. It's an incredible
Didn't they go through
story.
like Apple or something?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, they went through his Apple account. Did some kind
Amazon. They like social engineered Amazon.
Oh
and
right, it was social engineering Amazon. Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's not as bad then, but this is Matt Honen just got really, really, really badly hacked for no particular reason other than he had a Twitter name somebody liked, and that made me really paranoid. And that's when I two-factor authenticated everything I could.
Good.
Yes.
I'm happy to hear that. You guys should two-factor authentication everything as well. I'll put a link in the show notes to a website that will show you two-factor auth everywhere as far as different banking, social networks, and different sites that do enable two-factor authentication. It also gives you a link to each of those companies' Twitter accounts so you can tweet them and ask them to add two-factor authentication if they don't have it yet.
It is a pain to have to look at your phone every time you log into something, but not nearly as big a pain as it would be if somebody hacked into your account.
Yep.
Or if some family member decided to take over your account, or whatever.
All right, remember, once in a while, put down your phone, step away from the screen, close your laptop, and do something analog, like get yourself in shape to run a 5K.
Which I am doing.
What?
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much. I have fervently resisted every single application app or Fitbit, or I saw a $300 thing that's counting your reps when you're in the gym, which makes me laugh because even I can count to 20 pretty consistently. But if you haven't seen it, I'm using the C25K app. It's really simple. C25K has been designed to get just about anyone from the couch to running 5 kilometers or 30 minutes in just 9 weeks. So the $64,000 question is whether or not I can rock 3.1 miles in under 30 minutes by the end of the year. Let me know if you want updates or to keep it to myself, or if you're curious about this kind of stuff. It is a really neat application because it essentially, it tells you, it's kind of like when you climb Everest, you go up to this 1,000 feet, then you come down, then you go up, then you come down, and they acclimatize you. Well, they have a whole they start with a scout pace where you run for 90 seconds. No, you run for 60 seconds and walk for 90. In any case, the app is free to try. Go check it out.
Cool.
C25K.
Thank you, everybody, for watching the show.
Yeah, and by the way, Black Friday holiday shopping and the end of the year coming up, so if you have stuff you want us to cover, let us know.
So is our episode 100.
We're 100?
I know, we're old.
Thank you for watching,
because of you
and
guys.
thank you for supporting us on Patreon, because you make it possible for us to do this for you. Thank you. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on TekThing. The worst thing when you start running again after not running for, other than chasing your children for approximately forever, is being I am so self-conscious when I run.
That's how I felt when I went to Denver. Because getting 6,000 feet
altitude,
above sea level.
5,200 feet. The mile-high city.
Oh, well, I went
the
to
air is thin.
Yeah, I flew into Denver and then I went to, oh, what's it called? It's a really like expensive, fancy freaking city where my friend got married outside of the city, and it's closer to the mountains, so you have to go up a little bit. It's a very small altitude change, but the highest I got to was around 6,000.
Well, we live at
And I
sea
went to
level.
a mountain zoo. I went to a zoo in the mountains. It was weird. Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. It's really cool. But yeah,
What was
I was
in
trying
the
to walk
mountain
around and I
zoo?
was just like,
I played
think
a
I'm
rugby in
dying.
high school. We played a rugby tournament in Denver.
oh wow.
That was. I mean, that was when I could run for 45 minutes without stopping. I was fit. I was healthy. I was young.